All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. How are you? Boy, that was pretty lame. How are you? All right. Gee, I don't know if you're up yet. We're so excited to be here with you. My name is Jared Spataro. I will be joined by my colleague, Jeremy Chapman, who is here with me. Jeremy, you may know, produces the wonderful show, the mechanics videos that you can go and view, and I think we're going to have a lot to show you today. Today we are here together to talk about simplifying your IT, and I will split this time with Jeremy. We've got some great demos to show you. We hope that we can help you think about ways that you can simplify your IT, so let's get right into it. As we think about simplifying IT, first I want to take a step back and think about the world as we know it today. If your configuration is set up like many of our customers, you will find yourselves spread out across perhaps the cloud, more often on-prem, with all of the different types of assets that you see up here on the slide. You may have, for instance, Exchange deployed, your Active Directory, you've got things going on with Windows servers. There's a lot happening, and of course, there's a ton of complexity in administering all of these various components and trying to get them to work together. When we think about the cloud, for many years, we told our customers, just move to the cloud, move to the cloud. And as I take a step back and think about that, I realized that we didn't really focus on the benefits. The benefit is that the cloud and technology in the cloud can help you to simplify this story in really significant ways. So today, as we're together over the course of this next 60 minutes, what we hope to do is to show you how the cloud can actually help you to take this chaos and turn it into order. Even more specifically, how it will not only help you turn it into order, but actually will literally help you simplify how you manage your IT infrastructure. Cloud-connected IT really does two things. The first thing that it does is it takes advantage of a whole bunch of signals that we at Microsoft have to offer. Up here, you can see some pretty amazing numbers as you think about what we process through the Microsoft Cloud. Over 450 billion authentications per month. We manage over 1.1 billion Azure Active Directory identities. We have over 150 million and growing devices that are managed by a config manager and Intune. There are over, this slide's a little bit old, over 800 million Win 10 PCs that we can see. And we have over 135 million monthly active users on Office 365. Now, what's interesting about all of these data points is that they become signals for us. They allow us not only to have raw signals where we can figure out what's happening through all of these different transactions, but we can actually reason over these signals and start to provide value for each of our customers. Let me show you what I mean. As we take these signals and we put them together, we can start to identify patterns, and we can put those patterns to work for individual customers. That means that the intelligence from millions, billions, even trillions of transactions can be put together through this configuration of the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge to help you simplify the management of your IT assets. Now, we do all of this through what we call Microsoft 365. Originally, when we launched Microsoft 365, it simply was the combination of three big product lines for us, the ones you see up there: Windows 10, Office 365, and EMS. In many ways, like we are often wont to do, it was a combination that was created through licensing. There were advantageous reasons for you to purchase these three product lines in this way because of licensing and the licensing construct itself. Well, over the last 2 years, we have been really hard at work to make Microsoft 365 much more than just a licensing bundle. We've been hard at work to create integrations across these various products, and as we talked about, to take the signals that come as people use these products so that we can turn them back to you for your benefit. Now, as we talk about Microsoft 365, we have a 4-part value prop. You can see that up here. The whole package itself is meant to help your end users unlock their creativity, to make sure that we foster and engage people through teamwork, to integrate what we're doing and all the IT assets for simplicity, and then to deliver ever increasingly intelligent security. And today in this session, we're going to focus on that integrated for simplicity pillar. You will see, though, as we go across the demos, that we stretch across all 4 components of the value prop. And that will come out as we actually get into the various components. As we think about integrated for simplicity, today we really have 3 chapters to what we want to present to you. First, we want to encourage you to cloud connect what you already have today. If we go back to the beginning, many of us are spread out across some things in the cloud, many things on-prem, and there are many powerful ways to cloud connect the assets that you already have today. When you do so, that leads you to the second part of our presentation today, which will be unlock superior visibility and control. Through cloud connections, you'll see that we'll be able to put those signals that we talked about and the intelligence associated with them to work for you. And then finally, we'll be talking a lot at the end of today's session about shifting to Windows 10 and Office 365. This is a construct that earlier in the year we talked about as what we called the modern desktop. We've now moved to be laser focused on these 2 products just because of the impending end of support dates that are coming. We'll show you the benefit of deploying these 2 things together, and we'll talk a little bit about the help that we can provide if you're not quite there yet or still working on your plan. So Cloud Connect what you have today. It's useful to take a step back and to look at the various components that many people already have deployed from Microsoft and what we'd like you to do with them, the value that comes as you make the shift. Here you see, for instance, you can move from legacy devices to modern devices. We won't go into detail on those today, but it's so important if you want to get all the value at the endpoint to move to modern devices that have capabilities that complement the underlying apps and services. We, of course, want to encourage you to move from Windows 7 to Windows 10, from Office and on-prem versions of Office to Office 365, our cloud-based solution. And then we've got some great things that we'll talk about today in terms of how you take what's on the left there in the blue, Active Directory, ConfigMan, and Windows Defender, and you don't necessarily have to move those entirely to the cloud as your first step, but instead you can connect them, as you see, to AD, Azure Active Directory, to Intune, and to Microsoft Threat Protection. The connections between what you already have deployed on-prem and what we can provide for you in the cloud will deliver a ton of immediate value and power. And to show you exactly what I mean, I'd like to invite up Jeremy to the stage, and he's going to take you through our first set of demos today, very focused on IT value. Welcome,
Thank you,
Jeremy.
Jared. Hello, everyone. All right, so everybody's in IT here, right? So we wanted to do something a little different today, which is actually show the IT story first and how you get to Windows 10 and Office 365, and then show you kind of what the journey payoff actually is. So first off, I'm going to show you what you do in terms of Cloud Connect and Config Manager. How many people have Config Manager in their environments today? So I think most people do. So one of the things that you can do now with Configuration Manager is actually add Intune to that. And what that gives you is a lot more management capability. Let me show you what that looks like in terms of being able to manage devices through Intune and Config Manager in a co-management scenario. So here I've got all of my devices. They're actually reporting up through the device management portal. It's showing all of my Intune data. Now the nice thing is I can go in and actually see all the devices that are logging up. If I click into devices here, I can see everything, whether it's a Mac, whether it's a PC, iOS device, Android device. If I click back here, you'll see all these different Windows machines. They're all owned and managed by Configuration Manager as well as MDM managed through Intune. And you can see that here. Now the nice thing is if I want to troubleshoot devices, let's say I've got a help desk call that comes in. And I know that Sage is calling me saying, I left my computer in the backseat of a taxi cab and it's got data on it. I want to make sure that that device is safe. So if I go and I search for them, I'll see a nice screen here. And because we're running on Windows 10 in this case, we can actually do some things through mobile device management effectively on a Windows device and be able to do a remote wipe against that. So the nice thing is I can see all the devices here from Sage. I can see that his Windows device is actually co-managed through Config Manager and Intune. And if I want to, when I select that, I can start managing it. So I can actually do things like perform a remote wipe on that device using effectively a control that we have inherited through MDM against Windows 10. So I've got both the devices, or both of the management tools with Intune and Config Manager being able to do really great things in terms of protecting my data with the device. So I can issue a wipe, and you know what happens after this. The device will get wiped, then the next person that finds it in the backseat of the taxi cab won't be able to access my data, so everything's nice and safe. All right, so that was all magic, but how do I get that running? So let me show you how you actually configure that through your Configuration Manager console. So here we're actually inside a Config Manager. Nice thing is, because Config Manager has the ability to connect to cloud services, we can just go into co-management. We click on co-management there. And what I'm going to do is actually sign in with my Intune credentials. So I'll type in my username. And once I do that, I'll be able to type in my password, as you'd expect. And then what it's going to do is actually tell me I can use this as a pilot and get started, kick the tires on it, figure out if I want to continue and move it into a broader production. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how I want to deploy, and I'm going to say I'm going to do it as a pilot here in this case. Then once I click next, it actually gives me all the different sliders, the controls to say who's going to own these configurations. Will it be the Configuration Manager side or the Intune side? I'm going to go ahead and I want to actually configure for Office 365 Pro Plus and the Office Click to Run apps to be configured through Intune. When I do that, I can click next, and then for my pilot group, I just go in and select a collection through Configuration Manager. It's as simple as that. I just go ahead and open up my collections that I have, click OK, and now I'm ready to actually start managing in a co-managed state that collection of users and devices with Config Manager and Intune together. No conflicts in policy. Both mechanisms can work against their devices. All right, but it gets even better than that, because now with Office, if anybody using Office 365 Pro Plus, anybody using the MSI versions of volume licensing Office, like say 2016, 2013, quite a few. All right, so we've actually standardized the packaging for Office across the volume licensing versions of 2019, as well as Office 365 Pro Plus. This is something I've personally worked on for several years at Microsoft to make sure that's really great from an enterprise configuration perspective. So let me show you something that's brand new that we just launched recently that actually lets you configure these packages. It basically generates for you all of the different settings and the things that you'll need as part of the installation of Office. So here is the Office customization tool. Pay attention to the URL at top. It's config.office.com. If you've got your machines open right now, you can go there and actually start building XML files, or you can watch me do it. But all of it's here, and if I go ahead and start generating one, I'll show you what you can do with it, because it's actually pretty cool in terms of all the different configs that you have. You know, you used to have to actually edit kind of with Notepad or a text editor this. Now it's all a nice website. So you can see I've got the 2019 builds, as well as Office 365 Pro Plus. You're not using MSI-based packaging anymore. Just remember that. This is the way that you're going to be installing any new Office build. So now as I click through and determine which apps that I want to have installed, I can see all my progress there on the right. The things I don't want to install, I can pick my channel. So a semi-annual channel like Windows will be serviced every 6 months. Then I'll be able to see any of the things that I'm doing again on the side that will actually give me the progress of any of the work I'm doing. So languages-wise, we can select all these different languages. One great trick is to actually do match OS. So that way, if you detect a Windows machine's running Dutch or German or French, it will actually match the version of or the language on that device. Here's where you actually determine where you're going to install from. In our case, we want to use Configuration Manager. So we're going to go ahead and make it a silent install for the user. We click Next, and then we can actually say, what are the upgrade options? So what do I want to do here? Where do I want to upgrade from? In my case, I want to use Config Manager also as the servicing mechanism for Office, so I can do that here. And then, at this point, I can say, and this is an important control, do I want to actually keep things like Visio or Project on the machine, maybe a 2016 or another version using volume licensing on that computer and not uninstall it, so I've got the two running together. And that way I can do that here and actually keep some of them on there, but it'll actually remove any of the Office, say 2013 or 2016 standard builds. So now here I can make the install silent. And one of the great things that we've added after I name this is the ability to actually do all the things that you used to have to do with the Office customization tool using the MSI package. We can do that now through the browser using the configuration file that we're building here. So for example, in this case, if I want to configure that RTF files will open in protected view, I can set that policy, and what that's going to do is it's actually going to put that in the instruction set into my XML, so when I actually deploy that out, it's going to install all the things I want to, not uninstall, for example, in this case, Project or the things that I want to keep on the machine. and then it will actually use this kind of as the governing mechanism as to what gets configured. Great thing is, if you're using Configuration Manager, you can do all of this through the Configuration Manager console as well. So you can actually create the XML through that website that I just showed you, config.office.com, and import that in, or you can run through the whole process natively through Configuration Manager, as you see here. All right. So now that I've got Pro Plus configured, I want to be able to manage it. Now, one of the nice things, and I think a lot of people probably have Active Directory and they're using group policies now, one of the cool things that we can do now that's brand new is the ability to actually use the Office Client Policy Service to manage any client that logs in with an Office 365 set of credentials. You don't have to have Active Directory and group policy running. So here, if we use Office customization or Office policy customization and policy service, we can go ahead and log in. And then basically, we're going to create a policy that anybody that signs in this case for all employees, they're going to get a default policy because we don't want to launch macros here. So I'll go ahead and select my group, and I'm going to configure a policy. Like I said, I'm going to configure for macros. And this is basically going to block these machines that sign in using any credentials. So if it's their home computer, if it's their managed machine, doesn't matter. Because they're logged in through Office 365 using their client apps, it's actually going to manage the configuration for them. So not being dependent upon Active Directory and group policy to get these types of configurations, which is super cool. And you can imagine what that means from a future state perspective, being able to do management without having to have the Active Directory domain join and those kind of things in place. So very cool stuff that's brand new. All right, so if you're doing a deployment of Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus, one of the things that you have to worry about is how to move your old files and all the things, your pictures, your documents from an old machine to a new machine. Not only that, but also keep them protected and keep them kind of centrally stored. This is going to light up magical things like co-authoring or being able to do rollback if, say, you get something like ransomware in your environment. All of these things are enabled through OneDrive. Very cool being able to get that centrally stored. Personally, I've got 3 different devices syncing up into OneDrive, and I can access all of my files even while I'm here in Amsterdam or when I'm back in Redmond using OneDrive Known Folder Move. Now, to get that set up, once you have a OneDrive client installed and you're actually just signed into it with your Office 365 credentials, you go into the Autosave tab through Settings, then you start protection, and that's going to protect the desktop, the pictures, and the documents folder. And here I don't have a lot of files in there, but every time I save a file to those 3 locations, it's going to sync it to OneDrive. And again, if I go to it from another computer, my mobile phone, I can securely access those files from any device signed in. And if I do sync across all my devices, they will all be in sync. So if you use 2 or 3 computers, it's very easy to stay ahead of your files. Nice thing is, because you're probably all managing users and you want to be able to configure this all silently for folks, you can do that through group policy. So here are the group policy controls for configuring OneDrive Known Folder Move. You need to have your tenant ID in hand. That's something you can get from PowerShell or from Azure AD. Then you configure that, and basically it will start silently redirecting and syncing those files for the users that are signed in to Office 365 with OneDrive, or through some of the other policies that you see here, you can actually configure it to inform users that their files are being synced to the cloud. So very cool stuff in terms of being able to get all of that running, enable that through automation and through kind of policy management effectively. All right, so let's move on. Now we've got basically Windows managed. We've got the deployment, some of the deployment stuff figured out in terms of Office configuration. We've got now our files syncing to the cloud. Now we want to be able to manage that through Microsoft 365, and something that's brand new that's in preview right now is the updates to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So if you think about it, there are more than 23 different entry points into Office 365 and Microsoft 365. As Jared mentioned, there's a lot of different kind of ways in, a lot of things to kind of balance. Now we're giving you one place, one entry point, one main portal to be able to do all of the main management tasks that you'll do every day through Microsoft 365, and that's what the Admin Center is all about. So now when I go into the Admin Center, you'll see it's great because I can actually personalize it for what I care about. So if I have a few admins in my IT organization, I can personalize it. I can get to all my specialist areas if I want to through here, like Azure AD, Exchange, and SharePoint, Teams, for example. I can add cards. So let's say, for example, I want to be able to track usage in my tenant to make sure that people are using the services I'm providing for them. All of that's being logged up into the service so I can see exactly what workloads are being used. My personal favorite feature of this is being able to click into a user and do all of the common user tasks that would have been spread throughout all the different areas of the Office 365 portal. Now, for example, the account settings, all my apps, what I want to provision for them from a services perspective, it's all in one place. And of course, the most common help desk call you'll probably ever get, resetting passwords, all there in one spot. So no more hunting around for the various controls for that user. It's all in one place, very easy to find. All right, so now, in terms of getting to Windows 10 and Office 365, a couple of things that most people worry about, that they're thinking about, is application compatibility. Anybody do the migration from XP to Windows 7? So you remember the application compatibility then. Now, one thing to point out here is that we publicly state 99% compatibility from Windows 7 into Windows 10. We've started running something called Desktop Aperture that I'll talk about in a minute, but they've actually seen numbers that are even better than that, where 1/10 of 1%, 99.9% of the apps that have been submitted to them are working. 3 nines of apps in terms of compatibility working from Windows 7 to Windows 10. But the nice thing is, as Jared mentioned, because we have this signal coming in, we can see app crashes, we can see anything that might present any issues with an app. Maybe it's a natively compiled 16-bit, any of those types of things, we can see through the signal that's coming up through our analytics. Now, what we can do now with Windows Analytics is actually give you a scoped view of all the computers and devices that you own to be able to do things like assess hardware and drivers, assess Office macros and add-ins, assess third-party apps, and also websites and intranet. All of these things that you can be able to see just through the insights that are gathered, whether or not those devices see maybe app hangs or crashes or anything else, drivers not loading, initializing, all of that gets logged up to where you can get a nice view of what's going on in your environment. That's going to give you a readiness assessment for the PCs that are ready to deploy. So you have all of this great intelligence that you can use because we do this as part of upgrading our consumer base. We're like the IT department to the 800 million PCs that Jared was talking about that are getting upgraded to different versions of Windows 10 every day. You can do this for your own organization. If you do find that needle in a haystack, that 1/10 of 1%, that small subset of apps that might have an issue, we actually have a service for that called Desktop Aperture. And I think there was a great set of stats. Out of 46 or something, 43,000 apps, we found 6 that had true compatibility issues. Those 6 apps, though, we worked with the different customers that we had through Desktop Aperture and actually fixed those apps. Brad Anderson's team actually works with you directly to be able to do whatever you need to do in terms of recoding, shimming, fixing Windows if we need to create something in the Windows shim database. All those types of things we can do as part of app remediation in case you do find, again, one of those needle in a haystack type apps that doesn't work coming from 7 to 10. The nice thing is once you find out that the different machines are ready for deployment, you can actually take that data and move it into a collection for Config Manager and then target those PCs for a deployment. So it's all data-driven. You don't have to worry about testing everything kind of manually to make sure it's ready for deployment. So let me show you what Windows Analytics looks like if you don't have that running. Because it's pretty easy once you set it up. Basically, the machines will start to log into your environment. Here you can see, for example, we have 35,000 apps. This is Microsoft data, so it's rather large from a data set perspective. But just look at, out of the 35,000 apps, basically about 500 of them really matter in terms of having multiple installs. And here we can tell, out of 35,000 apps, 72 that we have with some issues that we can actually start to address. And if we go into any of those apps and actually look and see what the recommendations are, we actually publish that guidance through the tooling. Now here we can see low-risk apps, apps to prioritize, as well as driver testing, some of the things that we have to do there. As we start to review and triage through everything that we have, we can see the machines that are being reviewed at the moment, ones that are ready to upgrade, ones that cannot upgrade. You can see there's just one there that won't upgrade. And then even as we start to push out the deployment, we can monitor that through the same console to see if there are any drivers that don't initialize, any application crashes, et cetera. So we can actually monitor that as we broaden our deployment using phased deployment. So all of these different things that you can do and all of this intelligence that you can get is from Windows Analytics. So it gives you a really rich set of data, again, to be able to target, monitor, and continually deploy and keep up to date with new builds of Windows and Office 365 Pro Plus. All right, so something that's coming new, that's even one evolution step newer than Windows Analytics, is Desktop Analytics. Now, why the name change and why is it different than Windows Analytics? Basically, we're bringing in more Office 365 Pro Plus and Office information into the environment. We're letting you create deployment plans, and my favorite thing that you can see here, using machine learning, AI to actually build out recommendations for test. And I know everybody's doing this because I did it when I was in IT. You know, you've got your friends and family that are doing the piloting testing, and I did this all the time. The IT department gets the new builds, maybe a couple of friends that are like Power BI users or people that want the latest, greatest software. And that might be your 22 devices that you see here. Now imagine you had a mechanism to comb through the different apps and devices you have installed to say, hey, Jeremy, if you add these 89 machines to your test environment for pilot, you'll have 100% coverage of all your devices, all of your apps. You'll have data back from everything to know whether or not it's good to proceed on that device type or that set of apps. So again, I can make data-driven decisions on deployment and deploy as fast as possible. The nice thing with desktop analytics and Windows analytics, they're not just a project-based one-time use type of tool. As you upgrade to different versions of Windows 10, you're going to continue to use these tools to help you do that. Of course, as mentioned, everything's integrated with Configuration Manager, so all those devices that are deemed ready for deployment, they're going to feed right back into Configuration Manager to where you can create collections and target the machines that are ready for deployment, and then monitor their progress through Config Manager or through the analytics tools as well. So there's something else I mentioned earlier in terms of if you do find a few things that don't work when you come from Windows 7 to Windows 10 or older versions of Office 365 Pro Plus, called Desktop Aperture. Just to kind of describe what that is, it's a direct line effectively to reach out to our engineers to be able to create fixes with apps, work with ISVs, work with the Windows team if need be, the things that you have to do to get that, again, that needle in a haystack of apps that don't work to work. The way I like to think about this is, if we weren't confident in the compatibility level coming from 7 to 10, we wouldn't be able to offer this service. There are so few apps that don't work that it's financially something that makes sense for us to do. I mean, this is something that, again, because we've found so few apps that actually don't work, it's something that will really help in terms of A, peace of mind, in terms of getting to newer versions of Windows 10, and B, just the actual work to remediate and fix any apps if you need, again, the shims or transform files or anything else to get that stuff to work. We're there for you. We're side by side with you in terms of your deployment and getting you ready. All right, so one other thing that revolutionizes deployment, this is the last thing that I want to show in terms of some of the work that we've done here, Windows Autopilot. Anybody started testing Windows Autopilot? All right, so when I was doing IT, one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing was take machines into a build lab, pixie boot them, deploy a different image of Windows, rebox them, send them out to the user so that when they open their machine, it was provisioned and ready to go for them with our image, all of our apps, all that stuff. Now imagine if I could call Surface, HP, Lenovo, and say, I need to know the hardware ID of the machines that you're sending to me. Then we can actually get all those devices to self-provision right from setup, right from the out-of-box experience from Ubi. And what that looks like then is effectively the manufacturer gives us the hardware IDs. We create a deployment profile that gets loaded into Azure Active Directory and the Windows Autopilot deployment service. We work with the hardware vendor in this case to be able to say, what should this machine have on it? What policies, what apps, what configurations, what SKU of Windows, like if it's going to be an enterprise build, for example, you can do that. So when the user unboxes the machine, you haven't touched it. This is something that only the PC manufacturer or the system builders touched. They haven't used your image. It just basically brokers that connection to Intune, into the Windows Autopilot deployment service, customizes that computer, and it's business ready just in a couple of minutes with all the apps and settings and configurations that you need on that machine. So pretty cool stuff. Let me just show you what that looks like here running. So here, let's say I've just unboxed this nice Surface Pro device, and you guys have all seen this in terms of the out-of-box experience. And here I'm going to go through this standard setup. So it's going to basically look for the device details and start to initialize the device and go through what is effectively sysprop specialization. Then when I log in with my credentials to a Wi-Fi network, I'll be able to, or if I'm plugged into a hard connection, I can actually have the machine provisioned directly, basically make the connection with that machine back to the deployment service of Autopilot, Then it links up to Azure AD and Intune, provisions the device, and everything's ready to go. Here, for example, this is one that I can do as a kiosk, so maybe it's a signage PC or something I use in an internet cafe or somewhere else. It will automatically load what I want on there. Fully provisioned, I didn't touch it, zero-touch deployment. Without having to ever unbox that PC, I've got it configured just by plugging it into the network and turning it on in this case. Very, very cool stuff. All right, so what does this all look like in terms of getting Autopilot and Config Manager and Intune working together? A couple of things to be aware of. First, for new devices, Autopilot is awesome. It's something that you can actually do that customizes the user experience and does all of the things to make it business ready without having to even touch the device in your own build labs. Now, the nice thing is if you have existing computers and you use Configuration Manager, you can actually create an Autopilot task sequence so that even the older machines that you're upgrading to, say, Windows 10, maybe 1809, or a current build, those will actually get all of the components on them. We basically drop a definition file, a JSON file on that device as part of a task sequence build. Now, every time that device gets reassigned to a second or third or fourth user, you can reset it and have the Autopilot experience just like you unpack a new device from the manufacturer that's brokered that connection with the Autopilot service. So all of the machine reassignments, all those things will work as you would expect from, as if it were a brand new machine. It's connected to Intune, connected to Azure AD, and ready to go and ready to make it business ready every time that you move it from person to person. Something else that's very eminent in terms of release that we've talked about since the Ignite timeframe is Windows Virtual Desktop. So this is another thing. Anybody using remote desktop services in their environments, VDI? Probably quite a few people. This actually optimizes, and the coolest thing about this, so it's hosted on Azure, so you can have all the management experiences if you want to do a depth or breadth deployment, all the different options that you're going to want to have from a performance perspective or utilization perspective. You can do all the things that you'd expect from remote desktop. If I want to be close to my data source, high bandwidth connectivity, if I want to do really powerful machines that have powerful virtual machines behind them because I want to make it a lightweight environment for users, all those different options are there because you've got all of the IaaS services, the compute options from Azure behind you to do that. Coolest thing, though, by far, is that we're using multi-user, multi-session Windows 10 client operating system on these devices. So everybody who's done probably VDI is using a server OS, usually Server 2016 these days, and they've got multiple sessions concurrently on that machine. Now we can do that with a client operating system. And when you add that with what we're doing in terms of persistent storage and some of the stuff that we're doing with FS Logics, to actually make it so that it works with Outlook and with OneDrive, and it actually attaches storage as you get brokered your VDI session, it is super cool. So we're going to be talking about more of this and all of the capabilities over the next couple of days, so I'd encourage you to check out some of the sessions on Windows Virtual Desktop. Nice thing is, and this is something that you've probably all built out in an RDS environment in the past, it usually takes a weekend or a week or sometimes many weeks to build it out. It's usually about 8 to 10 minutes, and you've got a full remote desktop services environment using Windows Virtual Desktop, and it will infinitely scale. I mean, it's 8 minutes from what used to be 8 days a lot of times to get this stuff built out, so really, really cool stuff. All right, so where do you start? All these different things I've talked about today, co-management, OneDrive known folder move, the Windows 10 experiences, Office 365, and the configuration tools that you have. What we've built is the entire set of guidance around desktop deployment with the Desktop Deployment Center. Remember this link, aka.ms/how-to-shift. Everything that you'll need for every decision that you'll make is there. And we've built, whether you like to learn through video, through written guidance, or through hands-on labs, all of it is kind of aligned using the same methodology. Everything that you'll want to know is at these 3 links. So remember those. Also, the decks are available online as well. So with that, I want to bring Jared back up to show you what the benefits are now that we've done all the IT work to get to the modern desktop. Jared's going to show you what that looks like. Welcome back.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. So we have talked a little bit about how you cloud connect what you already have. I love that idea of being the first step because we're not saying throw everything out and start over. We're not saying you have to do a big migration, move to the cloud. Instead, we're saying take what you have now, cloud connect it. Once you get there, as you saw from Jeremy, there are so many things available to you, especially insights that come as we combine signals from your tenant and endpoints with signals that we have from the devices and services that we manage. That is the insights that are so important. And of course, what we're ultimately working towards is a great end user computing experience. It's wonderful to simplify IT, love it. Love to drive down costs, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is ensure that we simplify things with the end in mind, and that is making sure that people can get more done. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about this idea of shifting to what we consider the most productive experience out there. That's a combination of Windows 10 and Office 365. As we think about what makes those two products in combination so special, there really are three components that we talk about. We believe that it's the most productive combination out there. I'll show you some of that as we go through the demo. We believe that it's the most secure and getting ever more secure as we continue to add to our own estate and the services and apps that help you to increase security. And then, of course, we're very focused on lowering the total cost of ownership, or TCO. Let me just take you into this and we'll show you what we've got here. I'm going to start out first by talking a little bit about where we're innovating. At Enterprise Connect this week, I am proud to announce that for the second year running now with Microsoft Teams, we won Best in Show. What that means is we think we've got a winner with Teams. I love the way Teams is changing how people work. And I want to start out with our demo today here with Microsoft Teams and just show it to you. How many of you out there are already using Teams? Would you just mind? Wonderful. Okay, so it looks like we're about 2/3 or so. I would highly encourage you, if you're not today, to make sure you take some time to use Teams. What you see here is a standard Teams interface. On the left hand, what we call the left-hand rail, you have the capabilities that come right out of the box. So you get things like activity monitors, chat, one-to-one or otherwise, Teams, as I'll show you in just a moment, meetings and files. We've continued to add other components, including calling and conferences in here. If I just show you what this looks like very quickly, I'm going to switch over to my Teams, and you can see this here. Up at the top here, you'll see, for instance, I have Teams, and each team can have a series of channels associated with it. That channel really is homed or centered on a threaded conversation, and you can see that here in the middle. But it also has a number of tabs up top here where I can continue to add capabilities that are specific to the work that that team does. In essence, we like to think of Teams as what we call our hub for teamwork. This is where you bring together everything you need to get your work done. And it's the way that Microsoft 365 really shows up and shines for the end user. Now, I'm not going to take you through a full Teams demo today, but I just wanted to highlight for a moment kind of some of the great capabilities that we can start to embed in an experience like this. You'll see here, Henrietta is part of my team, but she is responding to what we're talking about in Greek, and unfortunately, I don't speak Greek. Lucky for me, I can use a translation service that's built into the conversation framework there, and it will translate it directly from any number of languages into English, and you can see that integrated right into the environment. I can also take what you see here and copy this, and then together with Windows 10, you'll see one of our new features called the Cloud Clipboard. I love the Cloud Clipboard. If you're on the latest version of Windows, you can access this today. If you just hit Windows V, it will actually pull up. That's the paste mechanism. It will actually pull up this Cloud Clipboard. And as you see here, it not only stores kind of one thing that I've copied, but now it starts to give me a queue of things that I've copied. And I can actually use this queue of things that I've copied that I want to manipulate across devices. As I go through quickly here, for instance, you can see that I can move through these various components. And as I click down below, I can pin it, or I can even sync it up to the cloud service. And as I sync it up to that cloud service, it'll be available on any of my Microsoft 365 endpoints, which is really quite cool. Small affordance, but really makes a very big difference. Now, if you saw the opener today, you saw one of my favorite features in Teams, which is the recording of meetings. Here, I'm just going to bring up a recorded meeting, and you'll see people start to log in, they turn on their video, and they start going and talking and having their meeting. I see the automatic transcription that's happening at the bottom. You saw this again in the opener earlier today. I can also search the transcription, looking for Megan's name, for instance, and find exactly when in the recording Megan was mentioned. You can see the 3 different times with timestamps there, and as I hit it, it will take me directly to that first instance. And there you can see really being able to get access to things quite quickly. Now, my boss has asked me through Teams here to do some work on a PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and open that PowerPoint up in PowerPoint Online. I love the way that Teams brings these things together now across Windows 10 and Office 365. I can see that there's real reason for me to work on this PowerPoint because it's pretty plain Jane. There's some work that's required. We're going to show you some new features. Many of you have seen some of these, maybe not all of them. But the first thing I'm going to do here is I am actually going to open up what we call the Ideas pane. And you can see that right up top here. On the home screen, we put it, and the Ideas panel that is sliding out from the right-hand side is a consistent UI affordance that we've now built into all of the Office apps. As we embed intelligence into those apps, we're finding that a consistent place for the user to go is a really nice way to help them to get at this intelligence. Immediately, as I hit Ideas, you'll see that it allows me, for instance, to search for pictures that are related to the topic that I'm working on. It also gives me some recommended files down here that are associated with the topic that I'm building this deck about. If I click in and add a subtitle, you'll actually see it change here on the fly. I'll type in solar and wind energy, and you see it change in the types of pictures that it offers for me. I'm going to click into one of those, and you'll see a bunch of windmills. And I'll choose that top right one and put it right on the slide. And here you see that we're pivoting from just generic ideas now to, on that right-hand side, a list, or essentially kind of a rich preview of many different design ideas that have been given to me. And I've selected that first one. So just in a couple of clicks, I've gone from a very plain opening slide to something that has a little bit more pizzazz. And so this gives me a good starting point for my presentation. Now I'm going to continue to go down. Here's something that we see a lot, which is a list of pretty boring bullets. But you'll see, again, Designer on the right-hand side provides a whole bunch of different ways for me to lay this out. In this particular case, it's recognizing that this actually is a set of steps. And so that second from the bottom one there actually puts it into, you can see here, a set of steps, and actually even isolates that first word as something that we can lock on. Here's another set of bullet points. And what I love here is as I click down on the right-hand side, I get a whole bunch of different ways to visualize this. But in this particular case, I'm going to choose the visualization that actually goes in and does some analysis of the words and matches that to icons in an icon database. And you can see literally it does a pretty good job. You can see, for instance, build has a small house, connect has people, our emotional connection brings up a heart. And so we're continually refining that matching process as people choose and interact with the intelligence that is creating the designs. I'll continue to go down here. I have a list of bullets that are milestones. We have what we call a consistency checker here. And in consistency checker, we actually go through these bullets to look for things that you're doing differently across things that it believes should be the same. And you can see, for instance, that there are in some cases punctuation marks, in other cases there aren't. I'm going to go ahead and make some of those changes, so I'll just click on them and it will make those changes. Finally, I'm just left here with two different spellings for the same word. I'm not sure which one is right, but I pick one of them and I'll move forward. And it just allows me to have some consistency. You'll also see as I continue to go through, it recognizes here that this isn't just any type of list, but it's actually a bulleted list with dates associated with it. And it will take those dates and turn it right into a timeline for me. So again, really moving forward in terms of how you're interacting. Now, what I want you to see here is that what's ending up happening is that these endpoints, these apps, are starting to have a conversation with the user, and instead of the user just solely giving the app commands, it is instead giving an indication of where you want to go as an end user, and the app is giving you suggestions for what you might want to do. That is absolutely the future of this connected endpoint when we put together these intelligent services from Windows and Office, and I love where we're headed with all of this. All right, I'll close that PowerPoint out now. And now we'll just highlight some of the other capabilities that are available. In this particular case, showing you what we call Microsoft Search. This is integrated across all of the Office apps, Windows, as you see here, and across all of Microsoft 365 and our apps and services. And so you could see me search there for a person. Now I'm going to go in and search actually for a file. I'll search for a Project Falcon budget analysis. That's exactly the one I'm looking for right there. And I'm going to open it up. In each of the apps, you'll find that use of intelligence helps the user to get more done. Here I just have a very simple flat list of rows and columns of data. Each of the rows represents essentially kind of one analysis on a particular, you can see a year associated with a product category, a product name, and then sales and rating. So I've kind of put that into just a list of things, and you can think of this as perhaps an annual or a monthly report. I'm going to take this, and first thing you'll see that I can do is I can collaborate with other people. That's something new in the Office 365 versions of the client. So I can interact directly with people and they can work with me here. I can do that across all endpoints. So I can do it in the rich client to rich client to web app to the mobile apps, across all of the various endpoints today now. If you are a subscriber, you can work together with other people. Also going up to the Home tab here, you can see the data for just a second. We'll go up to the Home tab and I will show you the Ideas capability here. And we'll open up on that right-hand side that same Ideas pane, and in this case, it's doing something different. In PowerPoint, it knew that I was trying to design slides. In this particular case, what it's doing, you can see, is it's actually analyzing the data and then giving me a set of visualizations. And in fact, with some of the visualizations, it's giving me ideas to look for. My particular favorite is this one down here in the bottom right. What it's done is it's done a scatter plot of sales versus rating. And through that scatter plot, it's identified that first there's a high correlation between those two things, but there are two outliers. And I'm going to click in and add that to, here we go, to the canvas. And you can see that blown up now, and it shows me those two outliers. Essentially what we're doing is we are connecting you to your very own data analyst in the cloud. And using Ideas here, we can help you to identify patterns or things that you might want to use in the future. So that's a very quick tour through the types of things that we are doing as we bring cloud connections to Windows and Office. There is so much here. Again, we're super focused on helping people to get more done. Just quickly to close things out, talking about Windows 10 Enterprise adoption, we have seen some tremendous momentum here, but there is an impending deadline that we'll talk about. In August of 2018, we were seeing every roughly 1 second an upgrade of a commercial device from Windows 7 to Windows 10. That's the 0.97 seconds that you see there. In October, we saw that kind of reduced down to just close to 2 every second, so every half a second. And in fact, in October of last year, we crossed over the point where over half of our commercially managed devices that we can see with telemetry now are running Windows 10. So we like where we're headed. Of course, it's important to keep on going because as we head to January 2020, there is this impending deadline. The end of support or end of service schedule that we want to point out and just call your attention to is Windows 7 goes to end of support in January of 2020, and then Office 2010 follows thereafter that same year in October. And so the big question, of course, is are you ready and do you have a plan? And we are definitely here to help. Things like Desktop App Assure that Jeremy talked about, things like other programs, Fast Track in particular is here to help make sure that you have everything that you need to make the move, to make the shift to these two great new technologies. The last thing I wanted to end with today is just a quick review of some things that we have done recently on Windows. In particular, we have heard a lot of feedback from customers who have said, boy, Jared, you have got to help us out as we think about not only getting to Windows 10, but staying current on Windows 10. Many of you know this news, but I just wanted to point out that we, first off, are on a semi-annual release cadence in the commercial space, in fact, across all spaces. But we have made recently a change to our servicing schedule that matters a lot. In essence, our H1 release, targeted generally for March, offers 18 months of support associated with it. That essentially gives you support if you're going quickly and trying to keep updated. We heard from a lot of you that that was not long enough, and so we have changed our H2, our September targeted release, to include 30 months of support. This gives you more time and allows you, if you would like, to actually just update Windows once a year. We hear a lot of commercial customers say to us, hey, once a year is a good pace for us to go at. At some point, we would love to get to 2, but please just help us get to 1 first. And that's exactly what this service and support schedule is meant to help you do. So if there are any questions, I want to dispel any lack of clarity here. If you had questions for me as to how to service Windows, we would encourage you to lock in on that fall release, that October targeted release. And then if you want to just get started, to update your Windows once a year until you've run the processes well enough, you've run water through the pipes enough times that you feel like you can go just a little bit faster. All right, so we started out by talking about 3 steps. I just want to review those as we close our session today. First, we encourage you to cloud connect what you already have. There is so much value in taking what you've already invested in on-prem and making the connection to the cloud. I hope you can see that, particularly in the diagnostic data, the signals that you get as you combine things from your endpoints and diagnostic data from our services. The 3 ways you can do that are listed there. Connect AD to Azure AD, connect Config Manager to Microsoft Intune, a very quick connection to make, and then using that OneDrive known folder move. The second thing that we'd encourage you to do then is take advantage of that superior visibility and control, particularly with the new Microsoft 365 Admin Center. We have a little bit of news on that this week that you can watch out for. You can immediately enable conditional access, which really is the foundation for delivering security within your organization. And then enable Intune security baselines, which provide you with a great place to start as you think about just the baseline of security that you want to implement across your endpoints in your organization. And then finally, we want to make sure that you make that shift to Windows 10 and Office 365. It's so important, not only because there's an important end of support milestone coming up, but your users can't take advantage of these great services that are offered through Microsoft 365 if you don't upgrade them and their endpoints to the latest technology. And in particular, as we end, I just want to point out Windows 10 is half the journey. But Windows 10 running something like Office 2010 just makes my heart sink. It's terrible. We want to make sure that you take advantage and get all the way there by upgrading to Office 365 Pro Plus. That's it for today. I want to leave you just with a pointer to Fast Track. If you have any questions about anything that we showed today, particularly the deployment aspects, Fast Track is our program to service you. You can certainly ask me questions after we're finished here about how to get in touch with Fast Track. We would love to be in touch with you and ensure that we have engineers assigned to your particular case and issues to help you work through all of those things. Thank you so much. If you want to contact Jeremy, you can see his Twitter handle up here. I will stay up here for any questions that you have. We really appreciate you coming to the event this week, and thank you so much for spending your time in this session together with me.